welcome back to Psych Your Way to Success. I'm your host, Claire. With me, as always,
Heather Fife.
Yes. And today we are excited to discuss something that right before we started recording, we kind of started to get even a little passionate about it. So we decided to hold it off and wait to talk about it here. And as we, know, this podcast is all about being able to look at different situations in the scope and through the lens of IO psychology, industrial organizational psychology. Today's topic, finally getting to it, leadership in a bubble. And that's how a lot of the times decisions are being made by leadership, executives, C-suite, whomever. And there's a large disconnect. So we're kind of listening to you guys. We had run a poll online, LinkedIn, and it was said that one of the things that are plaguing enough people right now is that disconnect that our leadership has with the rest of the organization. And primarily, when speaking of that, it's with respect to how decisions are getting made. They're just simply not in touch. So their awareness is low. A lot of things in my mind come to the forefront. But I'm going to check in with Heather first, because we realized we have a very polarizing dynamic of our work history. So I come from a very rich background of being that, frontline, not the frontline, but the line worker, or maybe not in executive leadership roles as much. I'd say more of my years have been spent not in management and executive roles. And Heather is very much the opposite. I think you spent the majority, if not all of your work experience in a leadership, executive, C-suite role. And it was funny the second, jump in where you want, but the second I brought this up, you're like, oh, I have this story. And I'm like, hold on, what? I was like, I don't blame them for thinking that. And she's like, huh. And of course, Claire shared her opinions. So, and now we're here. So please, Heather, I would love it if you would, give your takes, kind of let me know. Because again, I've had my years, I've had my time in executive, but from somebody who spent a lot of it, what do you got? How do you feel about that statement?
Well, I think there is some benefit in really touching in with your workforce, for sure. And I think not only just touching in and seeing like what they need, but understanding that need. And I think that sometimes is the problem, because we all have these words that we use. We all think they are defined the same, and they're actually not. So when, in my many years of being a leader or owner of a company, I always my intention was always to make it a great place for people to work, a place that people want to come and that they feel that they're actually a part of. And because being an owner of a company, it's very stressful. You are like, I always took it to heart where I am responsible for 100 families, and
when you kind of are,
and you are. And so it puts like the decisions you're making, there is a lot of time and effort and thoughtfulness, and just like, where do we put our resources? And anyway, so the one story that I was telling Claire before we got on, and maybe I'll just like share a little bit. It was a good learning experience for me, because we were building out a new location and everybody had complained that there wasn't enough time to work out or to be healthy. And so,
which is commonly a very common thing that a lot of people say at work. I agree. So yeah.
Right. And everybody was like complaining. And, when employees are not healthy, it really puts like a strain on the organization as a whole, right?
Absolutely.
And so working out is one of those ways to keep everybody healthy, right? Well, this is really funny, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, the part I didn't tell you about this story.
Oh no, this is gonna be good.
So we're building out the break room, And I thought it would be so fun to have a soda machine, like a Coke one soda machine, so that everybody could get, like, pick whatever flavors they want, and they could like make their own drinks, and it just like sounded
that kind of fun. Okay, I thought you just meant like I got you. So a soda making machine. Got it.
Yeah, so it was like, you know, like something you would get at, you know, a Taco Bell or whatever.
Okay.
No, like a real
you're talking
one.
Like fountain machine.
Fountain machine, thank you.
Oh, okay. Like when I was a kid, I'd do swamp water and I got all those different flavors. Got it. Yes.
Exactly. And I was like, how cool. That's like such a cool thing to do, right? And I don't drink soda. I don't like it for whatever reason, right? I have a lot of other vices. That's not one of them. But my husband at the time loved his Diet Coke. So I was like, perfect. I make him happy. I make all the employees happy. They don't have to go to the like local 7-Eleven to get their drink. It's just right here, right?
Yeah.
And they're telling me they're not healthy. I don't know why this is so funny to me.
Not adding up, but okay, yeah.
It's not. So I get the soda machine for everybody, and then I built out the break room to have a spot that can do yoga, that you can do yoga in. And I was like, I'll just hire my yoga instructor and have her come in once a day and do classes for everybody. Look, now I'm, you know, everybody's happy with their soda machine and we're doing yoga. Okay. So fast forward, the room is built out and I put a curtain over it. So it would like separate the space.
Let me ask real quick. When you made those decisions, who all had you checked in with?
Well, I wanted it to be a surprise.
Oh, no, sorry. I'm so sorry. And ruined. Got it. Okay. Continue.
Totally. No. Major fail. This is a major fail. Like, I'm not like owning how great this was. Okay.
Okay.
So then, you know, it's in, I'm like, ta-da! Like, everybody's so happy, like, right? And everybody just kind of looks at me like,
what are you doing?
You are so out of touch, right?
Yeah.
When I didn't ask people if they even did yoga. Like, I had just started getting into it at the time. And I was like, this is amazing. You're stretching. And there's so many benefits to yoga,
there's
right?
Endless benefits. I mean, I totally agree. Yes.
And like, but 20-year-old Heather would have never done yoga.
Fair.
30-plus-year-old Heather is like all in on yoga, you know, and whatever I think is amazing, everybody else should too, right?
Duh, absolutely.
So nobody likes the yoga area. I'm like devastated because I did it to bring everybody together and we can all do this together. Yes. Anyway, so
the thing that Heather, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
The thing that Heather said following this story, because I'm laughing my butt off, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that tracks a little bit. I get it. I'm starting to see maybe some bitterness by employees. But what was the thing that you said right afterward that got me passionate, as we're calling it? And I was like, wait a minute, no, I'm on their side.
What was it that I said?
So what you said was the decision was made with good intentions, which, by the way, yes. I almost inserted the path to hell is paved with, right? Like that's the age-old story of the path to hell is paved with good intentions. But then she says there should be some grace given to leadership when they're trying to make these decisions with good intentions. And I'm like, no. I was like, and it's not a hard no and a hard stop no, but like I come from this space of I'm not going to feel sorry for somebody that lives in this like, you know, la la land of pedestals that they have built up, and they make way more money than I do. They make way more decisions than I do, and the fact that they're not even considering me in those decisions that are directly affecting me. Are you kidding me? No, why didn't you consider it? That's literally your job, is to consider it. And at what point Heather and I started another new conversation. I was like, okay, we need to hold this for podcast. So we commence.
Right. Okay. So like I just to like follow up with that, I put couches there instead of having yoga mats.
Nice,
And people
nice.
loved the area, and it was used all the time.
Yeah.
But to the point of it was trying to be a surprise and like, look what I'm doing for you guys. And
Yeah.
I think that's where I do think that it would have been beneficial for me to be open to talking to somebody else. And maybe not everybody, but maybe some of the managers or somebody. I could have done
Okay.
anything. There were lots of options there. And I do think that as an owner, someone putting their money, their time, the stress, like it's a lot. It's a
It
lot.
is.
And like, and that's where I'm saying is as leaders, we get to check in and not be so when someone says, oh, I'm looking to try to improve my health, to be like, what does that mean to you?
Right. What does that look like? What does any of that look like? And I'm gonna I'm not attacking, but I'm gonna dive in on
Please
something that
do.
you said, which was maybe check in with some managers. I'm gonna play a numbers game with you. Is that at most organizations, it's not the number of managers is dramatically smaller than the number of employees. So if you want to get a good pulse of your organization, you're probably going to need to check in with the employees, not the managers, because still they're probably making decisions in a silo as well. So make sure you're going with the numbers game. Like make sure you're talking to the majority of the people. Maybe managers aren't the ones to talk to. And a lot of people just think, well, they're going to give me direct responses, or I have a good relationship with them. I'm usually working directly with them anyway, so it's easier. Well, that's the problem. Like, we're not here to hit an easy button. If you're trying to solve problems, go to the source. If it's the majority of people that want a solution to something, find the people doing the work and go there, or the numbers of people go there, you know?
Yeah.
I will say that there was like, again, what we think as, and again, I've been on both sides of this fence now, not spending as much time as like Heather has on the executive level or the leadership level. But I will definitely say that like the decisions that we think that we make while in a silo are for the best and are done well. A lot of people's experiences are not like that. Right? These decisions are made because it just is what it is and there's no transparency involved. Or they're making the best decision for the organization, not the people. So it's not made in good faith, right? Like, so the benefit of the doubt doesn't work in those scenarios. And that is what people are already being taught. So maybe by the time they're getting to, the next person who does mean well, and it is made in good faith, they've already been, burned too many times. Who knows? Like maybe they've worked some really bad organizations. I mean, have you had the opportunity to work for some really bad organizations, or have you had that experience yet?
I mean, not that, I have. My first job was at an investment firm, and, the culture wasn't what I would have wanted it to be, but definitely like, you know what? Honestly, I don't think actually, no, I haven't. Because I actually loved working there. I worked there for 10 years. Forget it. I loved I loved every job I've had. And so
That's
like,
awesome.
I don't think I've been in a situation, I haven't. So that's lucky. And I see that, I get that that's a privileged spot to be in.
A very awesome situation for you to be in. That's great. I'm stoked for you.
Right. No. I'm just saying that was very lucky. I was 15 when I got that job, and I stayed there for 10 years,
Jeez.
And then I was married, and we started our own business. So that was my career. I guess you could say like, I worked at Spoons, when I was 14, things like that. But
Well, that's
it
getting
was
too young as far as like
exactly.
comprehension
So
of leadership understanding. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
exactly. So I don't, and this is where I am coming from and saying, as a leader in this company, I saw that I did something wrong and I owned it, right?
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
not even just the yoga room,
Right.
having a soda machine
Oh my God, right after the
in,
yeah.
like, what was I thinking? Like sometimes I'm like, it's so funny. Soda is like that is not a healthy drink. You know what
Well,
I'm
and
saying?
let's just be honest. I think I mentioned it before. A lot of us say we want to be healthy, but how many of us are willing to put in the work and carve out the time
Right.
for it? So, I mean, there's no arguments for me there. That seems like a very common thing. I think the yoga studio, the forcing like what I want into everybody else, that's where I can see them just being like, "Are you kidding me?
Like, what's
What are
wrong
you
with you?
doing?" Um,
Yeah.
but I will say I probably, and I would think, but I'd love to hear back from people. I've most definitely had the experience that I think most people have, which is this is not the world and business that we work in is oftentimes not given the benefit of the doubt because we've been shown there isn't usually great intentions behind the decisions getting made, right? It's just based on a bottom dollar metric that is like the input output. And after that, then, if we can either be safe or if we can, find space in there to make decisions for people, then great. The humanistic side is involved. But I mean, it's not primary. It's not the thing that's not often what's leading the conversation when decisions are being made, for sure. But I saw the needle move over the last 10 years. I would say I saw the needle move as far as intrinsic humanizing of situations, but it comes at the cost of usually loss of life, loss of numbers, loss of funds. Like it hit people where it hurt, and depending on who they are and where they are in the organization, it hit them where it hurt, right? And whatever that looked like for them. So, and for you, it's always been humanized. So that makes sense. So that's awesome. I just don't know if I could say the majority of people in the business world have felt that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And this is where I think really working with leaders and giving them that human touch, or I don't know, the
Mm-hmm.
human connection makes a difference. I mean, a lot of times we're looking at, as leaders, you're looking at numbers, bottom line, and you forget that there's actual people. And, in some cases, you kind of can't humanize certain things. Like, I think there
Mm-hmm.
is some situations like,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
um, I always thought it was so fascinating to watch my husband at the time cut into people's faces. Like, I thought that was like insanely wild. Like, I can't even put makeup on my daughter. It stresses me out. You
Oh,
know what I mean?
wow. Yeah.
Like, let alone cutting on someone's face to like
So you're
cure
saying
them.
there's a time and place for compartmentalization.
There is. And so, but even with that, sometimes I would have to remind him, you're telling them they have cancer and it's,
Mm-hmm.
stage 4 melanoma. Like, this is a bleak outlook. This is not something that you just like, okay, and you have stage 4 melanoma, you have like 2 to 3 months to live if we're lucky. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
no, 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 no. Like, that needs to be, and you have to switch to that. And I would say, even in the medical field, it's hard to do that switch. That is not easy
Bedside.
and really so I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying this is where there needs to be leadership training and constant like check-ins with employees, not
Mm-hmm.
managers, but employees, making sure that like, where is the feedback? We gotten really good at getting customer feedback, I think, especially with the introduction of Yelp and
Oh yeah.
Google and all of that. We know what our customers are thinking about us, right?
Right.
But where is the internal feedback? And I think that's where, this IO Psych field can really shine, is like really looking at where people are struggling within the workplace and how we can help those struggling people and those corporations, the decision makers, to really check in and figure out like how to make the corporation work well.
Yep. And I totally agree. And I think that really starts and is rooted in leadership awareness, self actualization, um, emotional intelligence, obviously, and understanding that emotions are allowed. And that's such a fresh, well, it's not fresh, but I would say it's a relatively young concept in business. Like if we take a look at how that's aged up to now, it has not been all that long that unless you work for a mom and pop, that is not like, and I've worked mostly in corporations. And I think that's why I have a much different, possibly skewed version of working than you do, because a lot of my experience is in corp. And it's some of the most crazy things that I've ever heard are being said in certain meetings that, thank goodness, some people, just imagine if you took some of those board meetings and some of those executive meetings and publicized them throughout the organization as your eyes go wide for those that can't see. Yeah, like there's some scary moments that I think that some executives would have to curb, some of their words or whatever. And this is why it doesn't happen. I understand that. Business has to be business to a certain extent. But it doesn't mean that we forget that humans are helping make that business successful. And when it isn't successful, we are not looking in the right place. We look at the employees rather than looking at our management when it's not successful. And I think that a lot of that can be brought back to how are we managing people? How are we setting them up for success? How are we doing that kind of stuff? Which is a lot of what IO Psych does, right? Like it really shines, like you said, in these types of situations. How do we make them more aware though? What does that look like?
Yeah, and I think there's also, again, from the side of executives.
Hey, I'm
Sorry,
coming from
Claire.
both sides. I'm coming from both sides. I get it. Like
I
get
know,
it.
I know. I like, I'm listening to your perspective. I'm trying to take it into account. I also think that in large corporations, it's hard to adjust. And so like even with our small dermatology clinics where we had at the time 50 employees, and I wanted to shift the culture of the company. It took us 2 years to do it. It wasn't,
yeah.
it was not an easy, and it was trying to get people on board and like teaching, and like, it was a lot of work. I mean, that was like my full-time job.
Yeah. I have
Really
no doubt.
for 2 years. And so when you look at large corporations to really change that, that's a big move. And so it's daunting and difficult. Like that is not an easy ask. And so but I would encourage that's where this field of IO Psych just like is amazing. And there is opportunity and there is cool things that can happen. And there's lots of things that can change, that can just slowly start changing the direction of a company. And where everybody, employees, managers, executives, can be a little bit like patient and graceful as it's going in the right direction,
Yes. Oh, I think that they need to afford themselves that grace as they make those changes. No two ways about it. I will say that in some organizations, one that I was in, I mean, they were able to do it within one department and grow it outward until, top brass found out about it. And because of the culture being what it was, squashed all of it and destroyed 5 years of work of growing out a culture of change. and turned it back into a culture of fear, which was really sad to see. Like, and I'm not like, there's no two ways about that. It's, from my understanding, fluctuated ever since I left shortly thereafter. But I will say, I mean, it's not easy. It takes time, but it's not impossible. And if you want to try to create it within your own department as a leader, I highly, highly encourage you to do so. Just know that it's not going to be easy. Like, it's very difficult, and it takes resiliency. It takes waking up every day and making that decision to not just in title be a leader, but as a person to be a leader. Like, it's not easy. So, okay. So as we wrap this up, that 23 minutes went by so quick. So
Fast.
Heather, any last words for us?
I mean, I would just say take responsibility, own your mistakes with grace and consideration for the people that you're working with or working for, and that everybody has a part in it. It is not just on one person, even though one person shares the majority of the responsibility.
True. Yeah. I love that. I would add, like, advocate for the right thing, even when it's hard. Right? Integrity, not just as a place card on the welcome mat at your organization, but as a way of living. So, all right. That. This was fun. I always enjoy these conversations with you. So if you guys have any questions, any more topics, we love to see it. Really appreciate it. And we will talk to you next week. All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks.